So, I've been thinking a lot about FNAF lately, and I don't know about you, but I've always wondered why Mike wasn't William's son in the movie, as well as why most of the spin-off media doesn't follow the children of our killer either. Considering that one of the very few things we know for sure about these games is that we're playing as one of William's kids most of the time.
Father, it's me, Michael.
I've always thought this was a really weird creative choice. At least until I came up with this theory. The reason why all this spin-off media that retells the story of FNAF focuses on people who aren't the children of William Afton is because originally, we didn't even play as one of his kids either. I think Michael was the son of Henry, and that this is Scott's one retcon that he claims to have made all those years ago. But before I get into that, let me just make 2 quick points. Oh right, no fingers. Anyways, the first is that I believe Scott gets way too much credit for his world building.
For today's lesson, we will be continuing our training on proper stick handling techniques.
And not enough for his storytelling.
Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the bag, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right.
And ironically enough, I think the more he focused on that dub, the less compelling as a whole the series became. What? Huh! Well, my other point was that Scott never made this first game, hoping to get a franchise out of it. So at least for FNAF 1, everything that we needed for the story was already in the game. You play as a security guard having to watch 5 robots that occasionally try to get into your office and kill you. And then every once in a while, you're gonna see posters on the wall that talk about 5 missing kids that are heavily hinted to being stuffed inside the animatronics. And there's a phone guy,
Hello!
And your name is Mike, and you get fired at the end of the week. It's all so simple, but really well executed, and I can't help but appreciate that to this day. No, we don't know who opt the kids, but we don't need to. The setup is all here. There's even one little extra bit of spice in Golden Freddy and how weird he acts compared to the rest of his team. But that doesn't mean there was a plan or a production bible since day one.
Adorable, aren't they?
And all of that was basically just to say that Scott left himself a little bit of room to expand on the story. Now, I'm not saying at all that this is the best way to handle a series, but this is usually how it goes for horror. FNAF's got people arguing over what year this game takes place in, and I just love to see how they'd handle Friday the 13th. Because ultimately, some questions really don't matter for the sake of a greater story. Don't get me wrong, it matters that FNAF 1 takes place after FNAF 2, but the specific year? Who cares? Instead, let's skip to a year that actually matters, so that I can finally make my point with this video. In my opinion, the only date worth talking about is the year 2015, in real life. Because in this 1 year alone, we got FNAF 3, which was supposed to be the last game.
Was this meant to be the final game?
I think when I was making that game, in my mind, that was the end of a trilogy.
We got FNAF 4, which was originally titled The Final Chapter. We got the first of the FNAF novels, and Warner Brothers would secure the rights to not make a movie. 2015 is also when we have the infamous game theory livestream that Scott got involved with. And whether or not that was a smart choice, it would still end up changing how the story played out, because as Scott himself noted, apparently nobody figured out what happened in FNAF 4. And I am not about to sit here and tell you that I figured out the story, but what I did do was look at everything that came out the year this game dropped. And so, based on all of the knowledge from FNAF 1 through 4 and the first novel of the Silver Eyes trilogy, I would like to suggest that the original plan was that Michael was Henry's son and Charlotte's big brother. Now, I'll be the first to admit that a lot of this theory hinges on a few recurring creative choices in the franchise as a whole, as well as buying into the idea that Scott doesn't exactly know what makes a retcon. And I think we can all agree on that second one, right? Like in FNAF, If we're led to believe this is Henry, then he dies in it. But if he dies here, how is he at the end of Pizza Sim? And if Scott just made FNAF World not canon, then that would be his one retcon. And if that's the case, what do you call switching Charlie's gender from him to her in FNAF 2? Instead, how about we just cut the man some slack? He is from Texas after all, and on some days, it's a miracle we can even read. So I'm going to interpret that his one retcon was in fact one that not many people notice, which, to be fair, it would be pretty damn hard to notice something that never had the full context to begin with. It would also explain how, even though the spin-off media, which at the time was just the first Silver Eyes novel and unapproved movie scripts, continue to switch the focus to Henry's family dealing with the old man's slasher business partner. Granted, I just listed a bunch of other things that could have been the one retcon, but I also think that Mike being Henry's kid just fits a little bit better from a story perspective, or at least fits a first draft a little bit better. Now, even though I absolutely love this idea because of how it affects the overall narrative, I should probably cover why it doesn't work first, and let's just go ahead and get the obvious problem out of the way.
Father, it's me, Michael.
This is not the story anymore, regardless of how much I like this idea. So even if I got the answer right, it's still only in service of a plot line that straight up does not exist anymore. And with that out of the way, maybe the idea can still happen. Because now we've got the movie continuity. If Michael is actually Henry's son, then potentially there could be a movie version of Dave. And if that's the case, then that means the movie version of William may have lost his son to his business partner's kid. And that could easily be the catalyst for the start of William's murder spree. But that would also impact Mike. Now, he carries around the objective guilt of not only having caused his own brother's death, but also the deaths of so many other people. All because he was bullying the kid he was supposed to be in charge of. It's not like the original continuity is bad by any means, but just this one little detail makes me enjoy the whole series a lot more because I prefer it when my villain's motivations are understandable. And if William was already killing people before losing his son, then why should any of his backstory matter? But this one change would give William a little bit more nuance, as well as say a lot about Henry's character too. Because for all we know, Henry may have been fully aware there was some bullying going on and just didn't do anything. And unfortunately, it's everyone else who has to pay for it instead of Mike himself. But what do you all think? I, for one, hope that this is the direction that the movies head in, but I have no idea how much of a hot take this all really is, so be sure to let me know. And finally, thank you all so much for sticking around until the end of Night 1. I'm going to be creating an entire week's worth of FNAF Theory videos, all of which tackle the game's story one entry at a time. And I'll be using only the objective knowledge that we can find within the game itself. I will also only be accounting for the information that was available during the release of that game in particular. So while Night 1 was all about my personal theories on what Scott's one retcon was, the rest of my videos are going to be all about what we know for sure happened in each of the games. And with all of that taken care of, I'm bowing out. And I'll see you all on Night 2. Hey there, so I'm just going to be doing a little bit of catch up during the credits here. Thanks again for sticking around for this long. I've been gone for quite a while because I've really started to pick up in my film career. I do a lot of acting and stunt work nowadays, and then on the other channel we've got this cool new series called Rematch, and that's a show about taking famous fight scenes and updating them without losing the film quality itself. But outside of that one show, the more I work on my own creations and other ideas, the harder it is to want to just talk about other people's properties. And I think I've said everything I wanted to about franchises nowadays. And I've also been working on my own video games a ton. For example, the avatar that I used in this video is actually the prototype design of Sunny, the main character from our Stylish World game. And I've been putting together this cool little Souls-like Pokemon Red recreation that uses the Kingdom Hearts menu setup, so hopefully by the time I finish these FNAF videos, one of those two is going to be ready to show off. Hopefully, all of that you can look forward to seeing sometime this year. So yeah, if you made it this far, thanks again for watching, and if you need something else to do, go check out my rematch video. We didn't get a lot of people who looked at it outside of the film industry, ironically enough, but if that could get some traction, that'd make it a lot easier to keep up with these videos. Either way, hope you have a good one, and I'll see you next time.